only on Telesur, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean. Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Earth. Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
We are always there tracking the news. We seek equality. We defend the truth. It's a hard job, but we are not alone. We count on a new ally.
From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Soini Gray. At least 25 people have died and more than 300 have been injured after the Fuego volcano erupted in Guatemala. Authorities say that a total of 1.7 million people have been affected by the eruption and that at least 3,100 people have been evacuated. The village of El Rodeo was buried by a river of lava. The National Coordinator for Disaster Reduction said rescue workers couldn't reach some villages because it was too dangerous. The eruption also forced the international airport in Guatemala City to suspend all its flights because of the amount of ash on its runway. President Jimmy Morales has declared a state of emergency in most of the affected areas. People have started looking for their loved ones, although authorities have yet to confirm how many people are missing. According to the National Institute of Seismology and Volcanology, this has been the worst volcanic eruption in 44 years.
I have a little store. When the landslide and lava came, everyone was screaming. I managed to run, but I saw all the lava was close. So what I did is I got into a car with other people. There were 3 cars that took us far away from the danger. But we couldn't do anything else. There was too much lava. My family is buried. My mother, my sister, and my sister-in-law all are buried. One of our sons managed to escape. He's the only one alive. My father-in-law was also buried. I know they are dead. One of the teachers of the community went to every hospital looking for them. But my mother is nowhere to be found. Not my sister. We also went to the shelters, but we couldn't find them. I know they are buried.
Meanwhile, rescue operations resumed in the community of El Rodeo, one of the most affected areas. Recovery efforts were suspended on Sunday night due to low light and dangerous conditions. Our correspondent, Mario Rosales, is in El Rodeo.
We are being evacuated as a new landslide has occurred, and more lava is now coming down from the volcano of fire, just a few kilometers from us. Rescue workers are evacuating security forces, fire workers, and members of the media as lava is about to reach the area of El Rodeo once again.
We thank Mario Rosales for that report. The Guatemalan government has declared 3 days of national mourning to pay tribute to the victims of the volcanic eruption. In a statement released on Monday morning, the government sent its condolences to the residents of the 3 most badly affected departments. The government also called for the country to show its support and solidarity with the victims. In Colombia, a military operation against the Popular Liberation Army, or ELP, in the northern region of Catatumbo has left at least 2 civilians injured. One of the victims is a minor. Reportedly, the confrontation between the Colombian army and the ELP took place near a humanitarian shelter where campesino families have been living since April. They were taking refuge from the conflict between guerrilla groups. And we continue in Colombia, where the FARC leader Jesus Santrich has been moved back to La Picuta prison in the south of the capital, Bogota. Santrich had been at the Colombian bishop's headquarters since May 10th, where he was moved following his hunger strike for humanitarian reasons. Now that the FARC leader is in good health, he is returning to the prison complex until his judicial situation is resolved. Santrich was accused of drug trafficking by the United States. And at least 130 people have been arrested during an anti-drug operation in the southern Colombian region of Naya. During the first month of the Atalanta military operation, 6 tons of cocaine and 11 tons of marijuana were also seized. 91 vehicles were seized and 10 labs for processing coca leaves were discovered, according to the Colombian army. The operation has been carried out in the southern departments of Cauca and Valle de Cauca. The area formerly dominated by the FARC is now disputed by rival drug gangs. And Colombia's Ituango hydroelectric project is still on high alert. Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos met his cabinet over the weekend to analyze the emergency situation. A commission of experts has warned that the risks at the dam are increasing. The overflow at the Cauca River caused by the project has already forced 25,000 people to be evacuated, and a population of 130,000 residents are at risk if the dam collapses. Venezuela has rejected an attempt by some countries to discuss its internal affairs at the Organization of American States. The Foreign Minister, Jorge Arias, told the OAS meeting in Washington that this initiative violates the organization's own rules. Arias explained that Venezuela is in the process of leaving the OAS, but that it will continue to defend its interests. The United States has said it will maintain its sanctions against Venezuela in spite of the government's call for dialogue and the release of a number of imprisoned opposition figures. The European Union has also said it's considering further measures. The Venezuelan economy is under siege, but the Venezuelan people are becoming more creative in confronting this, as Ian Bruce reports.
The financial noose tightens on Venezuela and its oil industry. Following the election, President Trump added a ban on buying Venezuelan debt and collateral assets.
The United States will continue to use the full range of economic and diplomatic tools to prevent the Maduro regime's destruction of Venezuela's democracy and prosperity.
The sanctions are already making everyday life more difficult for Venezuelans. Like this pensioner, Luis Moreno arrives home with a box of groceries. It's the monthly delivery from the local food committee. Beans, rice, tuna, milk. For more than 6 million Venezuelans facing absurdly high prices, this has become a lifeline. But it's not enough. So Luis has begun to grow more beans for himself on his roof.
I choose seeds from the beans in the food parcel. I sow them, and that gives me between 1 kilo and 1.5 kilos of beans. That way we get used to producing our own food. Some plant beans, some plant tomatoes, other peppers, and then we can exchange them with our neighbors.
If he planted the whole 1 kilo bag, he says he could get 50 kilos of beans. But he doesn't have the space. Still, it's a start.
I don't expect a miracle. I expect solutions in the medium and long term, because a miracle will only come from ourselves, all together.
A couple of 100 meters down the road, in this historic neighborhood of La Pastora, the parish cultural center is holding a cooking class, with a difference. They are relearning to cook with what they can get their hands on.
If we don't have flour, we make arepas with carrots. That's what this alternative cookery is teaching us, and we work with vegetables, which we hardly used before, and they are full of vitamins.
It is their answer to what everyone here calls the economic war, which they blame on the large-scale food importers, processors and distributors, as well as the sanctions.
The big businessmen are the ones to blame for all this, because they are turning off the supply to all of us. And we won't allow that, because we are the children of Simón Bolívar.
For Yulema, who's running this class, it could even be an opportunity to improve people's diet.
This is for the long term, because if we make a habit of this, we will have these recipes forever. And they are healthy, GM-free and not industrialized.
The government says sanctions will make life even more difficult. But these Venezuelans insist they will survive. Ian Bruce, Telesur, Caracas.
We're going to take a short break now, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Mexico's election campaign is facing a dramatic increase in political violence, as well as accusations of corruption. Our correspondent, Pablo Perez, has the story.
Aspiring candidates for the presidency continue their campaigns in different parts of Mexico. Ricardo Anaya, a conservative candidate from the Coalition por México al Frente, promised to put an end to insecurity.
We're going to restore peace. Families will live safely. Families will live quietly. Families will live in peace.
In the capital, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the left-wing candidate who is leading the polls, rejected the political violence that has marked this campaign. He is promising a new national project based on peace.
It will be without violence, but it cannot just be peaceful and orderly on the surface. It cannot be superficial. It's going to be a profound change.
The violence continues to affect politicians, no matter what their party, especially in the southern states. The last 3 victims were killed in Puebla and in Oaxaca, where the rest of the local candidates decided to suspend their campaigns indefinitely.
We're going to suspend activities in Juchitán to show that we condemn all acts of violence. We demand that the facts be clarified as soon as possible, but we also demand an end to political violence.
Analysts say the high number of attacks during the last 6 months points to the involvement of organized crime in local elections.
They are not only competing with the PRI, the PAN, or Morena for the presidency or the mayor of a municipality. They are also competing with the cartels.
Since the start of the pre-election campaigns, 110 politicians have been assassinated in Mexico, including candidates and officials at the municipal level. The majority of the killings have been in the states of Guerrero, Oaxaca, Puebla, and Veracruz.
Nicaragua is mourning Cardinal Emeritus Miguel Obando y Bravo, an outspoken defender of human rights and one of the main supporters of the Sandinistas in their struggle to topple the Somoza dictatorship. Obando y Bravo died at the age of 92. Our correspondent in Managua, Maria Jose Diaz, brings us more.
It's a day of relative calm here in Nicaragua, but the days of tension are keeping Nicaraguans on alert. The Nicaraguan government has declared 3 days of national mourning to pay tribute to Cardinal Emeritus Miguel Obando y Bravo, who was declared a special promoter of peace by the National Assembly in 2016. Obando y Bravo also chaired the Commission for Verification, Peace, Truth and Justice, and was awarded the Order of Cultural Independence Ruben Dario by President Daniel Ortega 6 years ago. Friends and officials attended Obando y Bravo's funeral, along with his successor in the Diocese of Managua, Cardinal Leopoldo Brenes. He will be buried today at 2 p.m. local time on the campus of the Catholic University in Managua.
Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel and the first Secretary of the Communist Party, Raul Castro, has attended the first extraordinary session of the National Assembly to debate constitutional reform. Diaz-Canel warned that the new constitution will have humanistic values and those of the revolution. 33 congressmen will have the mission to write the draft of the new document. The Cuban people will have the final say in a referendum.
Guided by the political thought of the historic leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro, we are working in achieving a constitutional norm that reflects the sustainability of a sovereign nation, independent, socialist, democratic, prosperous, sustainable, and at the same time inclusive, where the institutionality of the revolutionary state and the dignity of the Cuban people prevails.
The International Monetary Fund says it will be sending a delegation to Barbados on Tuesday to assist the island in its plans for revitalizing the economy. Prime Minister Mia Mottley has already indicated that her administration would not be adverse to seeking support from the Washington-based financial institution. Pope Francis met with the 5 Chilean priests over the weekend who were victims of sexual abuse by priest Fernando Caradima. After the meeting with the Pope for more than 4 hours, the victims said they are trustful and hopeful about the reforms that Francis has begun in the Chilean church. This was the second meeting between the pontiff and the group of Chilean victims. Last month, Pope Francis also met with members of the Chilean Episcopal Conference. After the meeting, all the Chilean bishops presented their resignations en masse. The pontiff still hasn't officially accepted any of them. Now to Argentina, where hundreds of activists gathered on Sunday to support the bill on abortion rights, currently being discussed in the Congress. A group of popular actresses joined the demonstrators who are asking for free and safe access to abortion. The women used green scarves as a symbol of the safe abortion movement. The lower house is due to vote on the bill on June 13th. 30 legislators have not yet said how they will vote, and others are split in equal numbers for and against the bill. In Uruguay, feminist groups rallied on Sunday to protest gender violence. In the capital city of Montevideo, women gathered under the slogan, "Not Another Dead Woman," for as many as 22 Uruguayan women have been killed since the beginning of 2018. The murders were directly related to gender violence. In Brazil, nearly 3 million people participated in this year's Sao Paulo LGBTI parade. The event's motto was LGBTI Power, Our Vote, Our Voice.
22 years after its first Gay Pride edition, Sao Paulo gathered millions of people in the greatest LGBTI parade in the world.
Nowadays, people are more open about gay pride parades, but before it was very different.
Over the years, the parade has become the largest cultural and political event in Brazil, and yet its protagonists are still a minority inside institutions, mainly controlled by conservative forces.
We need people that represent us better among governors and in the lower house. We really hope that the crimes against LGBTI people will eventually be considered for what they are, awful crimes. The fact they are still not considered as such is very sad. So the focus of this year's Gay Pride is to raise awareness and encourage people to vote for candidates that will represent us.
Since the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff, there has been a 30% increase in homicides against LGBTI people. And recently, 2 people linked to the LGBTI struggle were murdered. One is Mariel Franco, and the other one is a student activist, Mateusa. Their cases are still open.
The situation is very sad, but every year the number of people involved in the fight for LGBTI rights gets higher.
Brazil is the country with the highest number of murders of LGBTI people. There is one every 19 hours. And instead of finding solutions, President Michel Temer eliminated the Ministry of Human Rights to give more space to public security as part of the military intervention in Rio de Janeiro.
It's 2018 and we are still killing people. That tells a lot about our society. It's unbelievable. The sexuality of a person should not be the reason for such crimes to happen.
Millions of people dance for their right to love and live. They also said very clearly that this year they will fight for their rights in the upcoming October elections.
We're going to take another short break, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Days of protest in Jordan have forced Prime Minister Hani Mulki to resign. The country's king, Abdullah, has now asked Omar al-Razaz, a former World Bank economist, to form the new government. Thousands of people in the capital Amman have been protesting for 5 consecutive days against a new tax bill backed by the International Monetary Fund, which aims at increasing taxes and implementing more austerity measures. Protests started last week after trade unions rejected the bill, calling on the government to withdraw it and announcing a general strike. At least 48 migrants have drowned in the Mediterranean Sea off Tunisia's coast. It is one of the worst migrant boat accidents in recent years. More than 60 migrants were rescued by the Navy near the southern island of Kirkenia. Most of the victims were Tunisians and North Africans. Authorities said there were around 180 people crammed into one boat trying to cross the sea to reach Europe. Human traffickers have increasingly used Tunisia as a launching pad for migrants heading to European cities. The incident coincides with a visit by the Italian far-right leader and newly appointed Interior Minister Matteo Salvini to Sicily, where he emphasized that Italy will no longer be Europe's refugee camp.
Water was coming into the boat. Those who could escape fled. Others drowned. We stayed there until almost 5 a.m. Then fishermen came to help us, and then the army arrived.
A day after Beijing warned that any trade and business deals reached with Washington would be void if the United States implemented tariff, China now says the door to talks is open. The Chinese delegation, headed by Vice Premier Liu He, and the U.S. delegation, led by the Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross, concluded their latest round of economic and trade talks in Beijing. In a statement released after their meetings, the two sides said positive and concrete progress has been made. Both delegations have threatened tit-for-tat tariffs on goods worth up to $150 billion each. Now let's have a look at some of the other stories making headlines around the world.
Madagascar's Prime Minister Olivier Mahafali has resigned following a court ruling that ordered to form a new consensus government to end the country's weeks of political crisis. Hundreds of people have been protesting after the president approved a new election law allowing an opposition candidate to run for office. The law sparked deadly street demonstrations across the country.
I fully accept the Constitutional Court's advice. Such is my patriotic duty. I would like to show my readiness to resolve the current crisis. I resign willingly and happily to allow the president to freely choose a consensus prime minister.
At least 8 people have been killed in a suicide attack in the Afghan capital, Kabul. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. The bomb exploded near a residential area where more than 2,000 religious scholars from across the country gathered to denounce terrorism. They plan to issue a religious order demanding Taliban militants to restore peace, which would allow foreign troops to leave the country. The security in Afghanistan has recently deteriorated and concerns have grown ahead of the parliamentary and district council elections due in October. A right-wing anti-immigration party has won Slovenia's parliamentary elections. The FtS won 25 of the 90 seats of the parliament. The party is led by former Prime Minister Janez Janša, who has been a vocal supporter of Hungary's nationalist Prime Minister Viktor Orban. SDS argues that money spent on migrants would be better used for the country's security forces.
And as the FIFA World Cup in Russia is right around the corner, it continues its tradition and has already found its fortune teller for this year. Achilles the cat, who lives in St. Petersburg's Hermitage Museum, is being trained to predict the winners of the tournament that is kicking off in Russia in 2 weeks. He will make his predictions by choosing between 2 bowls of food, each bearing a team flag. We've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at tellusyourtv.net/English. You should also join us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Sonia Gray. Thank you so much for watching.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on innovation, conservation, human well-being, and human rights. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with At the Moon. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body. Environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone.